All right, go for it.
Yeah, so I'll start with just a little bit about TripleO Quick Start, sort of where it came from, what the design philosophy is. It came out of RDO. I spend most of my time helping out in RDO, keeping things working there, and helping new users to OpenStack. And TripleO has just been traditionally very hard for people to get involved in without having a lot of pre-existing knowledge of a lot of topics in OpenStack. And so TripleO Quick Start was just kind of my way of not having to answer quite as many questions in RDO, and provide a way that the new user experience in RDO was good most of the time, as opposed to bad most of the time. And in order to do that, I pretty much took most of what's in Instack Vert setup and pulled it out of those bash scripts and into Ansible. And
conference. To mute your line, press *6. To unmute, press #6.
The only real difference was producing a image-based deployment so that I could be reasonably sure that a new user was going to be getting the exact same content that passed our CI system, because that was another just pretty big issue early on in TripleO. At least for me, setting up, I always had trouble like finding what bits were the right bits, and even currently, the repo setup part I think is kind of one of the hardest pieces of TripleO, just making sure you have repos set up correctly to get the right bits. And with an image-based approach, all of that is kind of guaranteed to be set up right. There's a couple holes in it, mostly because Instack Undercloud runs yum update on the Undercloud, and we do have one repo that's not static, so you can get different packages than what pass CI that way. But for the most part, you're pretty guaranteed to get what ran in CI, which is kind of the most important part of Quick Start. I guess I could jump into, so that's kind of where it started. From the beginning, there was really only an image being produced in RDO, which is really targeted to a slightly different audience. Like, it's not targeted to developers. I really was targeting like brand new users of OpenStack, not brand new users of TripleO. So the repo setup is really conservative compared to what we do in TripleO CI. TripleO CI is running the latest packages for all of the TripleO projects, pretty much, and Puppet. Like anywhere where we have a gate, we want to be running the absolute latest all the time. And then for anywhere we don't have a gate, we need to pin those packages to the last time we knew they were good, just so that we keep our gates working. For RDO, we don't really want the latest of anything. We just want stuff that pass CI. But recently, there's been work in both TripleO CI and in TripleO Quick Start. TripleO CI to produce an image, and TripleO Quick Start to consume that image. And so that's kind of the workflow I want to demo. Is we added a dev mode configuration that just basically all the dev mode does right now is point to that TripleO CI image rather than the RDO image, which the TripleO CI image then has the repos set up like TripleO CI. and it's using the overcloud images that are also produced in TripleO CI. So let's see if I can share my screen here. All right. How's that? Maybe bigger, probably.
Yeah, make them bigger might be good. That's
All
pretty
right.
good, I think. Yeah.
So I just have a checked out copy of TripleO Quick Start. The patch I was working on this morning. And from here, we can just run. There's in the root of the tree, there's this quickstart.sh script, and it's gotten kind of huge. It really is just a wrapper around Ansible. Ansible is not packaged in the base CentOS repos. So a lot of the script goes away with packaging because there's things that just set up the virtual environment and install Ansible in the virtual environment for you so you can run Ansible playbook. And then really, I mean, it all eventually comes down to running Ansible playbook against whatever playbook you specify. There's a default one, but it can take an arbitrary playbook as well. And this is really just, it came about for this last part, so that, because Ansible doesn't really have a good way to output some instructions after it runs. There's like debug messages and stuff, but they get buried. And so I really just wanted a way to like output some instructions to tell the user, you know, what they have and how to proceed. So that's where it came from. It's kind of exploded. There's a lot of options and stuff that are in this script, but like I said, a lot of them go away with packaging, which should be coming relatively soon. All right,
Okay, yeah.
so let's.
I just wanted to mention, so here you're actually on like your workstation or like your laptop or something. So you'll run quickstart.sh from your workstation, and you'll actually be applying the Ansible roles to another host. So sometimes that can confuse folks. I've seen some questions about that in the past. Ideally, we usually recommend like a whole separate box for TripleO development, and you'll hear folks refer to that as the vert host. So that's what we're talking about here. It'll be the host that's actually running the virtual machines. Ideally, if it's got 32 gigs of RAM, that would be best and probably give you the most the highest chance of being successful. You could get by with 16, but things can get a little flaky and start to really slow down if you have to go into swap or things like that.
Yeah, I would say 16 actually just almost won't work now. I mean, with the minimal setup and you have kernel shared memory configured, you can probably get by, but your chances of success are pretty low, which the point of Quick Start is to raise the chances of success, but it can't really do that too much on a 16 gig host.
And as far as what quickstart.sh does, it doesn't make any local changes to the system actually running Ansible does it. It's pretty well self-contained.
Yeah, so it will, you can specify a working directory. By default, it'll just put it in your home directory .quickstart. I almost always just, I'll go ahead and just show that. We probably need to handle this better in Quickstart because I always do this. So there's probably a better way to handle this in Quickstart. But I just like export a working space, like make temp -g. And so then all of Quickstart, everything it does, it will do in that temp directory I just created if I specify it to Quickstart. So it'll create a virtual environment there, install Ansible in the virtual environment, and then all of the files it lays down will be in that workspace directory. So to get rid of it on your local machine, all you have to do is delete that directory, or if it's a temp directory, it'll go away eventually.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And so there's some newer features that are nice for the TripleO development side of things. So this is another one. So this no clone option is one that is changing soon. But originally, I wanted to make it to where someone could just curl the quickstart.sh from the Git repo and go. And so the default in Quickstart is for it to clone itself. But by specifying no clone, it will run from the local checked out copy, basically the directory I'm in, as opposed to trying to clone it into the workspace and run from there. So if you're hacking on Quickstart itself, you definitely want to run no clone. Like I said, we're changing this default because I always run with no clone, and I think everyone else I've talked to who uses it always runs with it. So clearly the default is wrong, but it's just a note. And then this is the important part for getting TripleO CI content rather than RDO content. This devmode.yaml, we can look at it. It's really just points to the TripleO CI content rather than the RDO content. And then these, so there's this extra bars is just an Ansible thing. It's passed directly to the Ansible playbook command. It's just a way of specifying specific variables to Ansible outside of a config file. And you can even put them in a config file and specify the whole YAML with an @ these arguments just get passed directly to the Ansible playbook command. Here, I'm going to specify them one by one with an equals syntax. So we have, this is pretty new. This is a way to have Quickstart clone TripleO heat templates for you, and it sets up the deploy script that it uses to use that checked out copy rather than the packaged copy that will be on the image. So we need these two variables are the ones that are important to just start that behavior, just get it to clone it and use the checked out copy. With just those, we're not really getting any different content than what is in the master packages, since we're using the latest master packages anyways. But by having it clone them and check them out on our undercloud, we can just hack on them directly in the stack user's home directory and run the deploy script over and over again to test our changes. Oops. Okay. All right, so those two, the overcloud templates path and overcloud templates repo, are needed just to start off that behavior. But then there's actually one extra one that we added, where you can specify a ref spec of an open review, and it will check out that ref spec for you as well, which is pretty handy for either testing other people's changes that you're trying to review and seeing how they work, or if you submit stuff without testing it yourself, you can use this to test it later if it failed CI. So I made this example yesterday. I can't remember what patch this is that I've found a ref spec for, but in the download links at the top of Apache and Garrett, you can find this ref spec, which is also what Zool will pass into TripleO CI to reference that change. Yeah, so now Quick Start will run, and by default, if we don't specify any tags, it will run up until the right before we're ready to deploy the overcloud. So it will install the undercloud. It will do all of the undercloud post-install stuff, like loading images into Glance and loading nodes into Ironic. And by default, the minimal configuration does run introspection, mostly for CI purposes. For a virtual environment, introspection is pretty pointless, but we could even turn it off. So the variable for that is step introspect is false, just so we don't run it. And then this could probably go in the dev mode configuration, but this release variable is actually what determines the content. There's config files for each release, and master refers to RDO master. Master TripleO is the images from TripleO CI. And then the last option we need is what I was talking about as far as a workspace. So if we just want it to only put files in that temp directory we created, can do that. And then the only positional argument to quick start is the vert host itself. So just put in our vert host. I need one more thing because I've been running stuff on here. There's by default, it will only tear down the virtual machines that it created. I've been running a lot of stuff on this vert host, so I just want to tear down everything and build it back up before starting. So tear down all, we'll have it do that. And then since I have a new workspace, it's actually going through here and creating a virtual environment, installing Ansible in the virtual environment.
Hey, John, one question I had.
Sure.
Yeah, if we want to just tear down one of the controller or the computer, is it possible?
Yeah. So I didn't really go into the configuration side of things yet. I guess once this gets going, we can go into that a little bit more because this will take a little while. but the configuration determines what it does, either tear down or building up. By default, it will just try to tear down what it's about to try to set up. So whatever VMs we have specified that we want it to create, it will go and try to find those VMs and tear them down first. And if it can't find them, then it just ignores the errors. But just to make sure that we're able to just run it over and over again, it tries to tear down what it's about to set up. But if we pass in a configuration that's different than what we want to set up and only run the teardown, then it will only tear down that part. But let's see. So at this point, this is just kind of doing its thing. These setup, the roles that start with setup is really the libvirt setup. So it's just doing all of the tasks to set up the libvirt VMs. It has built-in image caching. So if you're using the same image over and over again, it won't re-download it. It caches the images by MD5 sum. So it first looks at the MD5 sum of the image, then looks in your cache. If there's an image with that MD5, it won't re-download it. And so that part was pretty fast. It's already like loaded the image and is doing the steps to compile the overcloud images and the undercloud images before booting it up.
So does it do like a text compare or anything? Like if the undercloud image has been updated from TripleO CI, will it download the new one?
Yeah, and there's a configuration to change that behavior. Like if you just never want to download an image unless you specifically are trying to update, there's a way to make it do that. But by default, it will go and look at what the MD5 is remotely, and then check if you have that image in your cache, and it won't download it if you do. Because both TripleO CI and RDO publish an MD5 with all the images. So, and if it does download it, it checks the MD5 to make sure the download was sane. Okay. So while that's going in our other tab over here, we can look at what's in the different configuration files. So there's really two subfolders of the config. There's release, and in here, all that goes in these release files is just a pointer to where the content is. So for master, that's RDO, and those images are on artifacts.ci.centos because they're produced in ci.centos. And then for master TripleO, we need a DNS for it, but that IP is TripleO CI's mirror server, and so it's looking there for those images. There is a slightly different process in that TripleO CI doesn't, that instack.qcow2 doesn't have the overcloud images already contained. So it Quick Start has to download all three and put them together right before launching. The RDO image, that undercloud.qcow2 actually has everything on it. So the other image URLs are not as useful.
So may I ask you, John, if for some reason the image download is not successful, will the TripleO actually continue, or will it fail?
Yeah, it will fail there. It will, and because there's nothing it can do at that point. Like the first, even before it boots up the undercloud image, it's going to inject SSH keys into it. So it really needs the image to even be able to proceed to the immediate next steps.
Is it possible to add multiple mirrors with the images? Let's say that you want to try one. If it's not reachable, you want to skip to another.
So there's nothing in Quick Start itself to do that. That would be interesting. For RDO, we actually have the images mirrored to the CentOS like build logs mirror server. I haven't switched the default to using it because it's a little tricky. The MD5 is just tricky on a CDN because the MD5 will propagate faster than the 2 gig image. And so you have this window where you have a mismatch between the MD5 and the image. And in RDO, we found that window is actually pretty long. Like it can be an hour. And if things are going well, we're making a new image every 4 hours. So there's a pretty high likelihood people are not able to use it. So we have to solve that. We have some ideas of how to solve that. But for the TripleO mirror server, I don't think there's any intent to make that CDNified. We could maybe eventually publish those TripleO images in CentOS as well. But yeah, those are all kind of open questions.
Yeah, I think what we'd eventually like to do is publish those to tarballs.openstack.org. So that would give us a little more redundancy instead of just hosting them on our own mirror. So we might try.
And for upstream TripleO, that instack.qcow2 doesn't have a ton on it. It's really just packages. And kind of the new, I don't know, the new setup with OVB, we're not going to be producing that instack.qcow2. So there's some work in Quick Start to either consume just a CentOS image from infra, because that's essentially what we're doing in TripleO CI for the undercloud, and installing the packages at undercloud install time. Or I have an idea to just convert the overcloud image into an undercloud image, because that's how we produce the RDO image. So there is already code for that. And if we just do that in TripleO Quick Start, I think it might be faster, since the overcloud image has all of the packages installed already for you. You just need to switch out a few packages, some of which I'm not even sure we need to switch anymore, because one of them was MariaDB, and I think that one is a single package now. But there used to be a Galera versus a non-Galera version, and you wanted the non-Galera version on the undercloud, but the Galera version on the overcloud. So there's just little things like that. Let's see how our deploy is doing. Okay, so it's installing the undercloud. I should have done this in screen, because I could log on to the undercloud here and show it. I would have to find my workspace though, because it's a temp directory. Yeah, I should have done this in screen, so I would have the workspace variable, but I didn't. So yeah, is there any other questions on where we're at so far? So there's a question in Blue Jeans: what are the most remarkable differences between deploying TripleO with Quick Start or TripleO.sh? So the only differences should be at kind of the instack vert setup stage. Everything after you have your virtual undercloud and your virtual overcloud nodes. All of that should be the same. Everything in Quick Start from that point forward is just what's in the docs and is just what's in TripleO.sh. And some stuff is just ripped directly, or not even ripped, like the validate in TripleO Quick Start. There's two paths to validate, but the default one is just to git clone TripleO CI and run the TripleO.sh ping test. So there's it's once you get undercloud and your overcloud VM set up, they should be pretty much the same.
John, one more question. When you do installation of the undercloud, basically on that host, when I was checking, it's not visible in the verge command by verge list, but when I checked the processes, I could see that the QEMU is running. So
yeah, that's a great question. I meant to go over that. That is one of the differences with between Quick Start and how InstackVirt sets things up. So we can just log on to my dev machine. And the reason for that is to allow someone who doesn't just trust a random Ansible playbook with random images off the internet to set up their virt host, do all the pre-setup stuff, set up their libvirt networks, all the things that require root. Let them do that manually. We have docs in Quick Start with the steps that you would want to do manually, and then only run the non-root tasks in Quick Start. So the VMs are, by default, the non-root user is a stack user, and the VMs are actually in the stack user's KMU, using KMU session instead of KMU system. So we can see the VMs there. But if we were on the root user and we tried to look for virtualists, they're not there. And similarly, kind of the opposite. So the networks are, in order to create the bridged networks, we do have to create those as root. And so that's why there's manual instructions for someone who doesn't trust running this random script off the internet. As a root user, probably behind their firewall, there's the steps for them to set up these networks, and then the way that we allow the non-privileged user to create VMs using those networks is with this bridge.conf. So we just put those bridges in the bridge.conf, which allows an unprivileged user to create VMs that are attached to those bridges.
Yeah, so in the Quick Start setup, the network called Overcloud, that's actually the provisioning network, I believe.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Right. That's okay. Right. And so the Overcloud VMs only have an interface, by default, only have an interface on that bridge Overcloud, and then the undercloud has the external and the Overcloud network on it.
Okay. Will you just do like a verse net edit on the Overcloud just so we can show that? Yeah. Okay. So you'll see the bridge name is BROVC, which corresponds to the bridge name that you showed earlier.
Yeah, and then just the way that the XML for the VMs is set up, it just references that bridge name instead of an actual network, because it can't. We can't use KMU system or KMU session and reference an actual root controlled network, but we can use the bridge. So there's a.
John,
Go ahead.
one more question. Sorry, maybe there wasn't a question like this before. If you actually deploy environment to 1+1 with a minimum, and you would like to scale it up, but you don't want to tear it down, is that possible?
So not with the. I guess the short answer is no. The environment. Yeah, I think the short answer is no. That would be a cool feature for Quick Start, the ability to just run it again and have it add VMs for you, and then you could do the scaling on the undercloud yourself via heat the normal way. But the part that's missing in Quick Start is the ability to just add some VMs. But I do think that would be a good feature for Quick Start, definitely in scope for Quick Start itself. So there's a couple questions in Blue Jeans chat. What's the status of support for bare metal instead of VMs? There's some folks in RDO that have been working on a couple different bare metal paths, both the undercloud as bare metal, and then kind of just taking advantage of the Ansible that drives all the undercloud install and overcloud deploy stuff. More interesting to me is the undercloud as a VM. I feel like a lot of production environments I've seen people want to do that. So our overcloud finished here. I'll just finish up on that. But that work, there's the architecture of Quick Start is such that you can kind of plug in your own playbooks and because you can plug in your own playbooks, you can plug in your own external roles. Roles in Ansible is an overloaded term to the way we use roles in TripleO, but it's a Ansible term. It's equivalent to a Puppet module. But you can develop your own roles outside of Quick Start entirely, and because you can use your own playbooks, and playbooks just specify a series of roles, you can. That's kind of the plugin architecture of Quick Start. And in RDO, there's someone has Renell Landy has done a lot of work on using an undercloud VM from Quick Start and actual bare metal nodes. So it's in progress. I don't know that would ever really fit in Quick Start proper. It's kind of hard to say, but the goal of Quick Start isn't really doing real deploys. Like it's getting either a development environment or a new user, allowing them to have a good experience of TripleO right from the get-go, the very first time they try it, and then letting them proceed from there on more difficult stuff. All right, so our deploy finished here, and don't know why it didn't output instructions at the end. That's probably a bug, but in our workspace, there will be this ssh.config Ansible. Let's just look at what's in there, because it's got a few different proxy setups to allow us to log directly into the undercloud without having to mess with like finding the IP and all that. So it just so to log into the undercloud, we've got that undercloud proxy entry that will just proxy through our vert host directly to the undercloud. So we just do SSH. Now we're on our undercloud, and so we've got our overcloud images on here. They're all loaded and compliant. We've got our nodes already in here. Didn't mean to do an HA setup, but apparently did. And yeah, and so that, and we also have our checkout of TripleO heat templates. So if we go in here and we say, you can see where we have a detached head, and it's the patch that we wanted to test out. It's one of a million patches. And we also have this overcloud. This is just it's really only got a couple things other than the overcloud deploy command here. One of them is more an automation thing. If you go too fast between registering nodes and deploying, they won't be available. So we just check the Nova hypervisor stats to wait until our nodes are actually available before trying to do other stuff. The other part is this configuration that's also in TripleO.sh to lower the number of resources that our overcloud nodes use by lowering the workers for each of the different services, just so that we can fit onto smaller virtual machines. And then this is just the deploy command, and most of this is filled in from stuff you specify to quick start itself. So for instance, I don't see our templates in here. So that didn't quite work. I'm not entirely sure if I have a old checkout or something.
It's just on the next line.
Oh, okay, yeah, there we go. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so it did work. Good. So by specifying those variables to quick start, it puts this in there for us so that we can just run the script rather than having to type out a long deploy command over and over. And then the last thing in here is just really kind of a convenience thing for CI, but I use it a lot even when deploying locally. It just kind of distills. Steve Hardy made a blog post a few months ago about troubleshooting heat failed deployments, and this kind of just distills that into a little script that will take the failed deployment output, if there are any, and put it in a log in the stack user's home directory, which then makes it easy for CI to just collect those logs. And so you don't have to go digging through a bunch of stuff to just find the Puppet error that caused deploy to fail. It'll just be in this failed deployment UUID log. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And we can just run the deploy. Well, I mean, at this point, it's just running OpenStack Overcloud deploy for us. There's one other thing in that script I didn't point out, but the script has a $@ at the end of the overcloud deploy command. So if we're just hacking on stuff and, like, say we decide we want to run debug, we don't even have to vim that script and add debug. any arguments we pass to the overcloud deploy script just immediately get tacked onto the end of the overcloud deploy command. So it's just like kind of a convenient script.
John, when you had this deploy command, you are now deploying 3 control nodes, right? But there is no control scale argument.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure why I got the VM layout I got. I think I might have done, there might be something a little weird in my environment, because the default is to deploy the minimal topology, and I didn't give it any topology. So it should be deploying minimal. We could even check. It hasn't started actually booting those up, but I'm almost positive that only the control and the compute are going to boot up. Why I have the extra VMs in my environment is probably something to do with my.
Can you probably check your dev mode.yaml? Maybe you have.
Sure. Yeah, I think it might even just have a single config option in it. Yeah, I'll just kill the deploy because that part is not really environment specific. But
yeah, so I was going to show just real quickly what it kind of looks like to hack on the Puppet modules. We just have a few minutes left, so I want to show that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, let me
stop sharing.
All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, cool. So yeah, this is just just similar SSH command to get onto my undercloud. I've already run the quickstart.sh and I've got my undercloud up here. So typically when you're doing TripleO development, whether you're adding a new service or trying to change how a service gets configured, the two most likely places we get making changes would be TripleO heat templates and then the Puppet modules for that service. Nova could be in Puppet Nova or something. One of the things that sometimes kind of throws people for a loop initially is that the Puppet modules are actually baked into the overcloud images already. So the Puppet Nova manifests and modules are already in the overcloud images. So if you want to test a change to that, you would actually have to rebuild the image or edit the image, which it can be a little bit cumbersome. So what we did is we added a script that will actually update the Puppet modules during the overcloud deployment. Kind of make the development a little bit easier so that you can keep reusing the same image but get new Puppet modules each time. So I just wanted to show what that would look like if you get into you create a directory here for the Puppet modules, and then you can jump into that directory, and I'm just going to clone the Puppet TripleO actually. So now I've got the TripleO Puppet module cloned, and if I were to make an edit underneath that, let's see. I'm just going to edit this init.pp, just like add a comment or something. Obviously, it's not going to do anything except add a comment, but I just want to show that that gets pushed out onto the image. So, script to actually update the modules is part of TripleO Common, so I've got that checked out here as well. I just need to define the TripleO Common scripts directory, my path variable. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a tarball of that Puppet modules directory and upload that to a Swift container in the undercloud. And then during the overcloud deployment, to download that tarball from Swift and extract it onto the overcloud instances. All right, so it's telling you here that it's uploaded it to Swift, created the tarball, it uploaded it to Swift. It also created a heat environment file. So if we take a look at that, you see we're setting a parameter here called deploy artifacts URLs, and this is
James, we cannot see the complete screen.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, we are unable to see the bottom part of your screen. Maybe you can reduce your console.
All right, let me see if I can.
Yeah.
I'll just try to keep it at the top. Better?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, cool. The other thing I wanted to mention is it actually put that environment file in a directory called .TripleO in the home directory. And the TripleO client over cloud deploy command is going to automatically read environment files from this directory. So you can just put any heat environments in here that you might want to run. So that's just another little way to kind of make things a bit more dynamic and iterative as you're deploying. So I've actually already got a deployment done, but I'm just going to rerun the deploy script again, and it's just going to update it, and it's going to update the Puppet modules on the overcloud instances with that change I made. This might take a few minutes to propagate out, but hopefully I can show it to you guys before we run out of time. But yeah, are there any other questions or anything? Well, we still have a few minutes left.
Is there a way of having a customized overlay network, either through TripleO or Instack?
You talking about a network in the deployed overcloud?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a way to customize pretty much. It's rather open-ended, really, to customize how the overcloud network gets configured. There are lots of different ways to set up overlay networks. The VXLAN tunnels, VLANs, whatever is really supported in Neutron, we're able to configure it during the overcloud deployment. Yeah, that might be something good to take offline because it could get rather specific, but there is a way to do it. And you can specify different bridges to use for the overlay network and configure the actual physical mix on the overcloud nodes as well, to associate them with the bridges that you want and whatnot.
There's one more thing I wanted to mention, that there's a gating role. And it's not in a state that currently we can use it, but I mean, it's not too user-friendly, but I will make a wrapper script for it. And what essentially it does is builds RPMs with DeLorean and then injects it into the under and over cloud. So we could very soon not just test TripleO heat templates, but any other change you want. So we can extend the dev mode a bit, but just stay tuned for that. That will be quite a nice feature, I would say.
Yeah, functionally, all that code exists. I've used it to test patches, but like Attila said, it's not quite there yet at the same user friendliness of the rest of Quickstart. But
yeah, we need to take off the rough edges, and that's it.
All right, well, looks like my overcloud update actually failed, but it worked before the demo. Anyway.
It failed for no valid host, so probably not to do with the Puppet module.
Yeah.
So, James, I had one. You kind of went really fast than I could capture. So you checked out the Puppet module. You did a tarball with the Puppet module upload script, which is I don't know where it is. Is it there in the undercloud node itself? One is that, and the second is it uploads into the Swift model. So every time we do the overcloud deploy, it kind of pushes that across to the overcloud node by default. That's what my understanding is. Is it correct?
Yep, that's correct. Let me. What I'm going to do is I'll put those steps into the deep dive Etherpad, so you can see them afterwards, because I know it went kind of fast. But yeah, that's exactly right. The Puppet modules are on the undercloud. They get uploaded to Swift on the undercloud, and that's where the overcloud nodes pull them from to update their copy of the Puppet modules. But I'll put those commands I used into the deep dive Etherpad.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So just real quickly, are there any ideas or proposals for the topic for next week? There are a couple of proposals at the bottom of the Etherpad. Steve Hardy has volunteered to go into various heat-related things, such as TripleO heat templates, and kind of deep diving into how probably the nested stacks are laid out, as well as the software deployments and things like that. So that could be interesting. I had another idea about the networking architecture, so kind of showing the OSNet configurations and the templates, as well as the Neutron configuration as well. I would have to recruit someone to help me out with that a little bit, most likely, but I could probably do that. So yeah, there are a couple of ideas there. Yeah, just +1 what you want to see, and depending on who can volunteer to kind of lead it, will help decide the topic, I guess. If you got any other ideas, add them down there. All right, cool. So we're a couple minutes over. Yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. I hope you found this useful. So yeah, we'll just plan to keep doing it every week, and for as long as we have things to talk about, I guess. So thanks for joining, and I will see everyone later.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lego.
Yeah,
Bye, thank you.